Tonight, we pull back the velvet curtain, because right now, someone in your life, maybe a coworker, a friend, even a stranger, might be using psychological tricks to control your thoughts without you ever realizing. In this video, we expose the 100 dark techniques manipulators use, so you can defend your mind before someone else takes control of it. In the silent machinery of human behavior, there exists a hidden architecture that only a few ever learn to see. Most people drift through life believing their thoughts are their own, their decisions are self-born, and their judgments are pure. But those who understand the architecture of manipulation know an uncomfortable truth. The mind is not a fortress. It is a kingdom with open gates, and most do not even realize how easily a skilled manipulator can walk in, rearrange the furniture, and leave without a trace. Machiavelli, learned long ago that influence begins long before a word is ever spoken. It begins with observation, with studying the desires, fears, and insecurities of the person before you. A manipulator does not act randomly. They architect your reality one subtle detail at a time. They craft an atmosphere that guides your behavior without revealing their hand. They create impressions, plant suggestions, and design emotional pathways that lead you exactly where they want you to go. The dangerous part is that these tricks rarely feel like manipulation. They feel natural. They feel harmless. They feel like your own thought patterns. A master manipulator never pushes, they invite. They never force, they imply. They never shout. They whisper in ways that make you think the echo came from within your own mind. This is why most people never realize they are being controlled. They only see the final choice, not the invisible corridor that led them there. Every tone of voice, every pause, every calculated display of vulnerability becomes part of the architecture. Manipulators shape emotions the way an artist shapes clay, with careful pressure and patient hands. They know that if they can mold how you feel, they can mold what you think. And once they mold what you think, they command what you do. Imagine someone subtly praising your strengths while highlighting a weakness they claim only they can fix. You will start depending on them without understanding why. Imagine someone withdrawing attention just enough to make you chase it. You will start valuing their presence as if it is scarce gold. Imagine someone framing every situation so that their opinion appears safer, more rational, more comforting than your own. You will start doubting yourself before you doubt them. This is the architecture of manipulation. A design so silent that you walk through it willingly, unaware that the floor beneath you was carved to guide your steps. Manipulators also know the power of perception. They shape how others see you, how you see them, and most dangerously, how you see yourself. A single suggestion placed in the right moment can alter your confidence. A carefully timed silence can make you reveal more than you intended. A seemingly innocent question can redirect your entire thought process. They understand that humans are predictable in their unpredictability. Fear, validation, curiosity, insecurity, attraction. These are doors that open easily when knocked with the right rhythm. This architecture is not built overnight. It is crafted through consistency, through patterns that repeat until they become familiar, comforting even. You begin to trust the very person who is quietly engineering your decisions. You begin to rely on the hand that guides you, unaware that the guidance was never meant for your benefit. By the time you recognize the pattern, if you ever do, the architecture has already been built around you, brick by brick, thought by thought, emotion by emotion, until escape feels like betrayal, and resistance feels like self-doubt. Influence is the closest thing to power that can be exercised without ever lifting a sword or raising a voice. It is the art of bending reality without appearing to touch it. In the courts of Florence, I learned that the strongest rulers were not the loudest, but the ones who understood how to direct the minds of others with a silent, calculated elegance. Influence is not persuasion. Persuasion asks. Influence decides. It turns hesitation into obedience and uncertainty into loyalty. It is the invisible hand that guides a person into making the very choice you want, while believing it was entirely their own idea. A true manipulator understands that people are not controlled by logic. They are controlled by the emotions beneath their logic. Present a thought wrapped in confidence, and most will accept it. Present doubt wrapped in authority, and most will surrender. Human nature is predictable in its hunger for certainty, approval, and safety. And the one who promises these things gains influence without ever having to prove them. Influence begins with understanding the insecurities of the individual standing before you. It grows when you learn how to speak not to their ears, but to the deeper fears they refuse to admit. Tell someone they are misunderstood, and they will follow anyone who claims to understand them. Make someone feel seen, and they will cling to the one who offered that moment of visibility. The manipulator shifts the frame of the conversation, not the facts. By defining what the topic means, they define what the conclusion must be. It is never about winning the argument. It is about choosing the battlefield on which the argument takes place. They alter the emotional temperature of the moment, sometimes with calmness, sometimes with controlled intensity, until the other person seeks their approval or reassurance. Influence is strengthened by timing. A calm voice during another's panic becomes a lifeline. A stern tone during someone's doubt becomes a compass. A moment of silence placed in the right tension can make even the strongest minds reveal more than they intended. Influence is not the mastery of words, but the mastery of moments. Selective honesty is one of its sharpest tools. By revealing a carefully chosen truth, the manipulator earns trust while hiding their deeper intentions. When trust is established, obedience follows naturally, as if the mind prefers the comfort of direction over the chaos of uncertainty. The manipulator also understands the power of scarcity. Make your attention rare, and people will chase it. Make your approval unpredictable, and people will strive desperately to earn it. They do not give their influence freely. They let others believe it is a prize to be won. Influence thrives on perception. If people believe you are confident, they follow. If they believe you hold answers, they listen. If they believe you are in control, they comply. The manipulator creates these perceptions through posture, tone, rhythm, and choice of words, not by accident, but by design. Their influence works long after they have left the room, because the thoughts they planted echo in the mind of the listener, shaping choices that align with the manipulator's goals. And the most dangerous part is this: the person under influence rarely feels controlled. They feel guided, supported, even protected, unaware that the direction they trust was crafted with intentions that were never their own. Emotions are the true currency of human behavior, and those who understand how to manipulate them hold a power more potent than wealth, status, or armies. In my lifetime, I watched rulers rise not because they were wise or just, but because they mastered the silent craft of emotional control. People believe they are rational beings, guided by logic and reason, but the truth is far more primitive. A single spark of fear can override years of education. A well-timed compliment can dissolve suspicion. A calculated pause can create anxiety so intense that a person willingly exposes their weaknesses just to fill the silence. Emotional hijacking is not a loud assault on the mind. It is a subtle redirection, a rerouting of feelings where the manipulator decides what you fear, what you desire, what you regret, and what you hope for. Fear is often the first tool. It does not need to be dramatic, it only needs to be believable. A suggestion that something might go wrong, a reminder of a past failure, a quiet mention of someone else's downfall. These are seeds that, once planted, grow into vines that wrap around a person's judgment. When fear takes hold, the mind searches desperately for guidance, and the manipulator stands waiting with the solution they planned to offer all along. The person believes they sought help, unaware that the fear which pushed them into vulnerability was crafted by the very hand now offering comfort. Guilt is another blade in this arsenal. Humans carry guilt easily. It sits on their shoulders, weighing them down with imagined responsibilities and exaggerated mistakes. A manipulator knows how to amplify this guilt with just a few words spoken at the right moment. They make the target feel indebted, ungrateful, or selfish, until the person's desire to escape guilt becomes stronger than their desire for fairness or truth. The manipulator becomes the judge, the victim, and the savior all at once, controlling the emotional narrative from every angle. Confidence can be hijacked just as easily as fear. When a manipulator needs someone to comply, they may elevate that person's confidence, praising them, validating them, making them feel extraordinary. But this artificially inflated confidence is fragile by design. Once the target becomes dependent on external validation, the manipulator begins rationing it, offering approval only when it serves their interests. The target becomes trapped in a cycle of striving, craving the next moment of validation, not realizing that their self-worth has become a leash held tightly in someone else's hand. Desire is perhaps the most intoxicating emotion to weaponize. People chase what they believe will fill the emptiness inside them. Love, attention, success, acceptance. A manipulator identifies this emptiness quickly. Maybe the person seeks admiration. Maybe they fear loneliness. Maybe they long for reassurance. By presenting themselves as the solution to this longing, the manipulator gains immense power. They position themselves as the one thing the target cannot lose, the one presence they must protect, the one connection they cannot afford to disrupt. Emotional hijacking is never about creating emotion. It is about steering it. It is about shifting the internal compass of another person so subtly that they do not see the hand turning the needle. The manipulator becomes the puppeteer of feeling, deciding when the target should fear, when they should hope, when they should doubt themselves, and when they should cling desperately to the very presence causing their confusion. Defense against manipulation does not begin at the moment someone tries to control you. It begins long before that, in the quiet decision to understand how the mind can be shaped, twisted, or influenced without your awareness. Most people believe they are too intelligent to be manipulated, too experienced to be deceived, too aware to be controlled. Yet history is filled with kings, generals, scholars, and leaders who lost everything not because they lacked power, but because they lacked psychological armor. The truth is simple. Anyone can be manipulated if they have not learned to recognize the signs. And the manipulators of this world feed on the unprepared, the trusting, and the unaware. That is why knowledge is not merely protection. It is survival. When someone attempts to influence your emotions, they begin not with aggression, but with subtlety. They slowly nudge your feelings, test your boundaries, measure your reactions. A person who wants power over you will rarely attack directly. Instead, they will push gently and retreat, watching how you respond. Your defense begins with noticing these small pushes, the tiny shifts in tone, the unusual timing of sympathy or criticism, the sudden interest in your weaknesses. Awareness creates distance, and distance disrupts control. When you step outside the moment emotionally, you can observe the intention behind the interaction instead of being swept into it. Manipulators thrive when you react instantly. They crumble when you respond slowly. The ability to pause, to breathe before answering, is one of the strongest shields you can carry. In that moment of silence, you reclaim control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions. A manipulator wants you flustered, pressured, uncertain. They want to dictate the pace because whoever controls the pace controls the outcome. Break the rhythm, and you break their influence. Another essential defense is understanding your own vulnerabilities. Every person has emotional entry points: loneliness, pride, fear of rejection, desire for approval, hunger for validation. A manipulator identifies these faster than you do. But once you recognize your own triggers, they lose their power. Self-awareness closes the doors that manipulators try to slip through. When you know what emotions sway you most easily, you can guard them with intention rather than letting them be exposed like open wounds. Boundaries are another form of armor, not the kind spoken casually, but the kind enforced through action. The manipulator watches how much you tolerate. If you accept small disrespect, they escalate. If you accept guilt that is not yours, they increase the pressure. If you allow emotional drain, they take more. Every time you enforce a boundary, you send a clear message: your mind is not their playground. Your emotions are not tools. Your decisions are not negotiable. A manipulator loses interest quickly when they realize the person before them cannot be bent. Most importantly, defending against manipulation requires the courage to trust reality over emotion. Manipulators craft illusions. They try to make you question your memory, doubt your instincts, mistrust your perception. But the mind becomes unbreakable when it relies on facts, patterns, and actions rather than feelings alone. When you observe behavior without romanticizing it, excusing it, or explaining it away, the manipulator's mask falls apart. They cannot control someone who sees clearly, someone who listens to their intuition, someone who refuses to let guilt, fear, or flattery dictate their choices. In the end, everything returns to one undeniable truth. The human mind is both the greatest fortress and the weakest doorway, depending entirely on how well you understand its architecture. Manipulators thrive in the shadows of ignorance, slipping through emotional cracks, directing choices with invisible threads, shaping lives while appearing harmless, patient, even kind. But now you stand with the knowledge they fear most. You have seen how influence is crafted, how emotions are hijacked, how trust is engineered, and how vulnerability becomes a battlefield. You have learned the difference between guidance and control, between genuine connection and strategic manipulation, between a helping hand and a hidden chain. And with this understanding, the balance of power shifts. No one can confuse you with illusions once you recognize the design behind them. No one can quietly steer your emotions once you know the levers they pull. No one can trap you in cycles of guilt, fear, or validation once you understand the patterns that hold those cycles together. Knowledge does not make you ruthless. It makes you sovereign. It gives you the freedom to walk through the world without being led by invisible forces or subtle tactics, meant to weaken your clarity and steal your choices. By seeing the machinery of manipulation for what it is, you reclaim ownership over your mind, your decisions, and your power. And as you continue your path, remember this: influence belongs not to the one who speaks the loudest, but to the one who sees the deepest. When you understand yourself, you disarm the world. When you understand the mind, you command your destiny. When you understand manipulation, you are no longer its victim. you become its antidote.